Hello, everybody. I am Dr. Ramesh Kulkarni, working as a professor in management in Kosal Institute of Management Studies, Karnataka University, Dharwad. Right now, I am holding the position of Chairman of Department of Management Studies, Karnataka University, Dharwad. Dr. Sachindra and Dr. Halsigi, they requested me to join you people on this workshop and share my knowledge, however small it is, with you all regarding collection of data and sampling techniques. I hope you are all researchers already gone through such reading on data collection, sampling, testing, hypothesis, and some part of research methodology. And therefore, I take it as an understanding that I am going to just give a memorizing talk to you all, and you will memorize upon the concepts which you have already learned and studied. Since we are not able to make an interaction as it is a online platform, and I presume that you all follow me, understand my words, and I straight away go to the topic. I will run my PPT simultaneously here for you people. And the PPT I have prepared in such a manner. It's not a simple Boolean point. I have tried to put the text for your quick reading and understanding. If somebody amongst you is a new person who is not learned this sampling technique as well as collection of data. So this is my PPT here for your quick understanding and reference in between while discussing. And after the class also you can surf back and see the details. I will not spend much time in giving the background things, but before I start collection of data topic, I need to speak few words about data, which you are all aware of. And data is a very common term for all of us. We use it very often in our routine walk of life. Uh, knowingly, unknowingly, continuously, we'll be using this term data. It's a very common term and very vital and crucial term. If you see the definition of data, it is simply we can define it as collection of raw facts and figures. And researchers, of course, your everyday you are confronted with a huge amount of data, and data in its raw form will be of limited use. It needs to be summarized, organized, and presented so that useful information can be allowed to emerge from it. Unless until we compile data, or unless until we have a query on the data, and based on the query we compile it, it will not give you any information. Rather, it will be a simple collection of raw facts and figures. As you go on analyzing it, it goes on giving you invalid information. Therefore, sometimes there is a debate as to whether data is first or information is first. And there is a egg and hen relationship between both of them. If you cook data, you are going to generate information, and if you extract data from information, you will get data from information. Both are egg and hen kind of people. Relationship amongst them. So such vital is data and information and data. Researchers, you are really bothered about. Such information can be used to provide insights into interesting phenomena or into relationships between variables, hints for the problem solving, or to provide directions for further data collection or appropriate method of analysis, and what you can, if you are doing your research, social science research, commerce research, management research, then data definitely goes like blood for it. Data can be classified into primary and secondary based on its availability. This we know. So from hence hereafter, we will be again and again repeatedly using these two terms as primary data and secondary data. Primary data and secondary data, this classification is purely based upon its availability. So what is primary and what is secondary, we shall see in our short while from now, in our lecture now. And another classification which we commonly speak of is quantitative and qualitative data, where quantitative and qualitative data is based upon its availability, its nature. I mean, it's based upon its nature. Some data is quantitative in nature and some data is qualitative in nature. Only two different categories are possible. Subcategories are there well within, but two major categories which we can speak about data is quantitative data and qualitative data. Where we researchers, we normally tend to classify data, collect data in the form of a quantity, or we try to express whatever research we are trying to pursue in terms of a quantity and try to express it in terms of figure. So if we are trying to express something in terms of a figure, then it is quantitative data. For example, age of a person, height of a person, weight of a person, salary of a person, or something like that. This is all quantitative in nature. And qualitative, wherever we are not able to express anything in quantity, it will end up into qualitative data. So, for example, nature of a person, good, bad, ugly, beautiful, something like that. When we describe something, we are using qualitative data. When we are quantifying something, we use quantitative data. So it's very clear. So these two are important types of data. And if you further see in classification, in quantitative data, you have discrete data and continuous data. Let us quickly see what is discrete. Discrete is something which is countable in nature. Whatever you count as an experiment, and result of a counting experiment will always be a number. It's an integer. For example, number of students sitting in a class, number of researchers working in a department, number of teachers teaching in a department, and a number of tables, number of chairs, number of cars parked in a parking area, number of vehicles parked in a parking area. Whenever you count something, you are going to end up with a whole integer, and that type of data is called as a discrete data. And whenever you measure something, say for example, you are measuring height of a person, weight of a person, then length of a table, height of a table, or anything, any measurement you do, volume of a liquid in a container, or something like that. Whatever you measure, then for example, temperature, atmospheric pressure, whatever you measure, that measurement ends up with a continuous value and decimal value. If a measurement ends up with a decimal value, then that decimal number is a continuous number. So there are two types of quantitative data, depends upon our experiment and measurability. The result of such experiments will be a quantitative data. So we have two fundamental types of data in quantitative, and in qualitative, we know, I just spoke about, say, for example, political inclination of employees in a corporation, labor, coalition, Democrat, Green, One Nation, other something like that. Then gender of MBA students, like male, female. Students' overall satisfaction rating, of course, very good, good, bad, very good, very bad, average, such ratings. The highest qualifications obtained by a CEO, something like PhD, master's degree, bachelor's degree, these are all your observations, values, or if such kind of values are going to be the outcome of your experiment, or the value of the variables which you are holding into your research, then such type of data is called as qualitative data. And qualitative data can be, and this data can be further classified into nominal data, ordinal data, then time series data, cross-sectional data, and like that. You know what is nominal? Nominal, when you name something like bus, car, train, ferry, cycle, walk, other, then you are using a nominal data, or you are generating a nominal data. When you are ordinating something, expressing in order, like poor, average, good, very good, or a small, tall, big, something like that. So it is ordinal in data. Say you are generating an order in it, and data is observed into um, different values in the order, and you can fix up the smallest order to the biggest order, or the lowest order to the highest order, or the leftmost order to the rightmost order. Like that, you can fix up order to data. If such data is there, it is called as ordinal data. Then time series data. This time series data is numerical in nature. It is quantitative in nature. Time series data is very much useful in research. If you are working out with the demand analysis, if you are working with forecasting, then time series will be best fitting type of data. It is a data collected over a variable, over a chronological order, over different time period. For example, if you are collecting data of something like umbrellas sold in a year 2000, how many umbrellas sold? In year 2001, how many umbrellas sold? In year 2002, how many umbrellas, and so on. If you are collecting value of a variable over a chronological period of time successively, then that type of data is called as a time series data. And this time series data forms you very good numerical data for analyzing, forecasting, demand, and even supply. So it is useful for researchers. Cross-sectional data is data collected over cross-section. For example, a survey of shoppers on bank charges taken on a particular day, or a study of house prices across 6 capital cities in June this year. The house prices across 6 capital, house prices in Dharwad, house prices in Belgaum, house prices in Bangalore, house prices in Calcutta, house prices in Mumbai, across cross-sectionally across different geographical region. If you are measuring the same variable, it is going to form a cross-sectional data. So this cross-sectional data and time series data, ordinal data, and nominal data forms you major types of data which you can collect in your process. And there are sub variety. Variety differs depending upon the type of the variable you are dealing with in your research. And a detailed study can be done referring to books in this. And for a brisk and quick understanding as a background for our collection on topic, I just told you about this type of data. So having these concepts kept in mind, let us move as to how to collect this data for our research. And researchers, for them, collection of data, analysis of data, and then interpreting it, and then concluding upon their research forms major portion of their research. And it takes a lot of time and efforts of the researcher, and it is the real botheration of the researcher in the research. Therefore, collection of data, how data is spoken in simple terms, collection of data is not that simple. It appears to be very simple at the instance which we think about, but as we go deep into the real befitting data for our research topic, our objectives, and our study, and then choosing or obtaining data befitting our requirements is very, very difficult. Many a times data is available ready, and when a data is available ready, we call it as secondary data. And collection of secondary data will be very simple, easy. So we shall start with secondary data first, and let us see how we can collect secondary data and what is secondary data. And then we shall move to our primary data. In this class, we are going to discuss about only collection of primary data and secondary data in detail. Now, if you take up secondary data now, when data are collected by someone else or for some other purpose other than the researcher's current project and has already undergone the statistical analysis and reported is a secondary data. The nature of secondary data is such it is already collected by some other researcher for some other purpose and has been analyzed and then presented as a outcome of somebody else's finding. And this data is readily compiled and presented in the form of an output. And whenever you are referring to secondary data, you will be referring to a table or a compiled information. And then from that, you have to extract the data which you require. So the nature of secondary data is ready. It is easily available. It is in the form of a published data, and you can extract the data which you want from it. But however, data may not be specific to the researcher's need because secondary data is already published, means it has been referred for some other purpose or prepared for some other purpose. And you are taking it means your purpose must be matching with the purpose that it was taken earlier. It may not be same many times. Therefore, taking a secondary data and making it applicable to your current context of research is a difficulty in it. That is a real challenge in it. Therefore, the secondary data analysis is somehow very challenging. Also, authenticity of the results must be skeptical based on secondary data. We do not know when it was collected first, how it was collected, who has collected it, and how he has analyzed it, how much authentication it was given then, whether it was authentic data then and then analyzed. We do not know. So we may, end up, if we are taking a secondary data, we may always end up into a situation where a non-authentic data is taken and analyzed. So many advantages are also there with the secondary data, and so many disadvantages are also there with the secondary data. Let us shall see them one by one. If you see how and where secondary data is available, then we have two important sources for that. Source number one is internal source. Source number two is external source. Source number one we shall see now, internal source. This means, see, internal and external, this refers to an organization on which we are focusing. Or if our research is focusing upon some organization or some industry or some business firm or some social enterprise or any such government organization, whatever it may be, the organization which is there in our context, for in for that organization we have both internal environment as well as an external environment, we know. So the internal sources of data pertaining to this organization will be called internal, and external sources which are outside the boundary of this organization, which are in the environment, they are called external. So from this angle we should see that. And we see internal sources, then we have this variety: registrations or reservations, sales or customer mix, database inquiries, unfulfilled reservations, etc. These are our internal sources. As external sources, government agencies, magazines, journals, newspapers, radio, TV, then associations, then research companies and consultants, universities and colleges in at large. This is a larger picture. If we go finer and deeper into different sources, we will be now exploring them one by one. So if you see internal sources of data for secondary data, we have financial accounting resources number one. This means if our research interest is something like we are working on financial management about a firm, then the financial information about a firm or an organization or set of people can be had from the financial statements of the organization, accounting statements like balance sheet, audit reports, yearbooks. We can see from such already published financial statements of the organization, we can extract this information. And therefore, If you see further, uh, the sales report we have, Salesforce report. It gives information about the sale of a product. If your research is surrounding sales analysis, then if your research is surrounding sales of a particular product or particular company or a concept or a service, whatever it may be, it is around sales. Then if you are trying to extract sales information, then you can refer to a company's sales report. The sales report of every company would be giving details about sales of previous years or previous accounting year, something like that. Successive sales reports, if you collect, you can collect series of data, and it can collect a time series data on sales. And where such requirements are there, Salesforce report will be fulfilling your needs. Then you can also have internal experts. This internal expert is nothing but referring to the seniors working in the organization. Many a times sales reports not available, many a times audit reports not available, or related to sales journal or sales ledger are not available. That time, or not only sales, some information which you are interested is not available in the organization, since it is not maintained in the organization or in the companies or group of companies. Then you may have to refer to the experts in the field. Experts in the field will be having their knowledge about the field, and they can share that their expertise to you to collect data. Many a times experts are consulted to extract data. This will help in knowing demand, when demand cannot be estimated in terms of a quantity or a number. That demand can be taken from the mouth of the experts. Experts are most useful here. Such experts here refer to senior managers of the company, retired people, retired managers, and senior most labor, senior most supervisor, senior most manager, in charge, something like that. Somebody like that. They will be internal experts. Then we have customer databases. If you are working on customer information, then customer database of the company are most useful. If you see all these, in the organization today who are engaged in service like retail sector, then the service sector, they will be continuously keeping customer database with them for the sake of following up on the customer, prospecting customer on sales, something like that. Customer databases are pretty common with all the organizations. Even hotels nowadays they are maintaining customer databases, and they try to keep in touch with the customer by giving them happy birthday wishes, their marriage anniversary wishes, and they would like to catch hold of these set of customers with the organization, so that they will be moving into business, having solid customer database. So their customer databases help these organizations to a large extent. Therefore, if a researcher is interested into customer information, then ultimately he can refer to customer databases for data. Customer databases here, they form a very good source of secondary data. Then company publications, reports and feedback, management information system, miscellaneous reports. Like this, you have so many internal publications of the company. Here to refer to you, management and MIS is a system which is nothing but a whole purpose of or objective of having a MIS is to maintain data on everything and anything about the organization. So it's a very good database, associated with the company, through which you can get any data. Such is the beauty of MIS. MIS is also one of the strongest internal source. Then miscellaneous reports will be there, something like yearbooks. Then every year they will publish. Then audited statements they publish. Then sales report they publish. Then tax report. Then depreciation report. So many reports they would be publishing. Then creditors information report. Then debtors information report. All that will be reported and maintained inside the organization, and they may be our one of the important sources. This is well within organization. These are important, which are easily identifiable and spread. There can be so many other sources of information within the organization as an internal source. If you see the external source, then you have these sources are outside the organization. These sources are in the environment outside the organization, and we shall quickly refer to them now. One is government publication. In government publication, you know what is mean by government publication: census reports, survey reports. Then Registrar General of India is publishing a report like demographic data, a report on gender, age, occupation of the people in a geographical region. Then Central Statistical Organization is there. They will be publishing reports such as census books, and every 10-year once they will conduct a census of the people, livestock, dead stock in the country. They do census on caste, they do census on income, they do census on so many factors, and a compiled census report will be published in the form of a census book every district wise, and they will be available in the government library. You can refer to them, and they are forming a very solid source of data for researchers who are working on demographic of the customers or something like that. Then Director General of Commercial Intelligence. This office operates from Kolkata. It gives information about foreign trade. It gives you information about import exports of the country. And these figures are provided region-wise and country-wide. And if you are working on import-export kind of data in your research, then definitely these Director General of Commercial Intelligence publications will be most useful to you. And there is no comparison for that. And Ministry of Commerce and Industries, they publish certain books. They publish reports on consumer price index number for industrial workers, urban people, and CPI for mutual manual employees and cultural laborers. And they will also publish you indices based on food, fuel, cost of living, wholesale price, and so many such information, very vital information about market, about cost of living will be published by Ministry of Commerce and Industries. They will be forming you very good source of information for you. Then Planning Commission, it provides the basic statistics of Indian economy. This is also very important organization, Planning Commission. The reports of this can be referred by researchers who are working in the field of economics. Then Reserve Bank of India, this is a very large organization, and any monetary related data, if you are interested in over a country, Indian context, you can refer to RBI. You will get a lot of data in RBI website. If you go to RBI website provides you huge amount of data, all data based upon monetary policy of India, and then repo rate, reserve rate, this rate, that rate. It's about finance, about Indian monetary figures you will get very easily in Reserve Bank of India. Then you can get information regarding banks, nationalized banks, then private banks, scheduled commercial banks, then cooperative banks. All types of banks data is available in Reserve Bank of India. It's a very large pool of data, and it will fetch you any sort of data depend if you are working in the field of finance and marketing, finance and monetary related researches. Then Labor Bureau. This Labor Bureau provides you information on skilled labor, unskilled labor, white collar jobs, and such jobs, etc. It is for labor data. They will publish such year reports, and you can refer them. You will get information related to labor. The National Sample Survey Organization is there. They will publish very useful data on social, economic, demographic, industrial, and agricultural statistics of the country, and it is also publishes reports on planning, and it's a Ministry of Planning. It is related to Ministry of Planning. Then Department of Economic Affairs is there. It conducts economic survey, and it also generates information on income, consumption, expenditure, investments, savings, and foreign trade. And it will also fetch us very vital and useful data. And state statistical abstracts are there. They will publish you commercial activities, reports on commercial activities, education, occupation. And if your research is around these things, you can definitely refer them and take data. They form a very good secondary sources. And apart from these are all government organizations which we talk about now. Other than government organizations, you have non-government publications also. They are also many and most useful. Among them, you have Indian Cotton Mill Association. They publish annual reports and they publish certain reports. You can access them. Then various chamber of commerces are there. Every district you have a chamber of commerce, and commercial activity more or less is recorded in every district in the chamber of commerce, and you will get lot of reports from them, and through them you can get data. Then Bombay Stock Exchange. This is for stocks and shares and market related, stock market related data. You have a hell lot of data available here. Bombay Stock Exchange, National Stock Exchange, all stock exchanges, national, international, up to NASDAQ, you can have Shanghai, NASDAQ, all these stock exchanges have websites today, and they publish reports continuously, daily, hourly basis also, and their reports are stored in the form of archives in the websites. You can anytime refer to these archives and download data required to you and do your research. And market related data, enormous data is available today. And most of these sites like moneycontrol.com site, if you see, analysis of data, stock, everything is done. Commodity, stock, debenture, this, that, IPO, what have you, and you have got hell lot of data available from these websites regarding stocks and shares. And if you are a researcher, you are overwhelmed with the data if you see these websites. So such are stock exchange kind of resources. Then various associates of press and media. Press and media, each press, like business reviews are there, like Business Standard, for example. If you open Business Standard website, you have got archives of all the Business Standard papers over years put into a database, and you can refer to their library also for seeking data. If you write to them, they will provide you data, whatever kind of data of earlier times you want. They will be having their own libraries in them, and they will be publishing a lot of magazines, newspapers, research articles, and e-paper. So many publications are available with these journals, newspaper, media, and media people. Media people, media, press and media becomes a very vital source of data for researchers, and all in secondary form. Then Export Promotion Council is there. They will be publishing data regarding exports. Then Confederation of Indian Industry, CII, is there. They are doing a lot of work. They are doing so many seminars, conferences, and they have their own archive. They have their own library, and they will produce you hell lot of data on industries. And you can based upon your interest, you can write to them. You can refer to their website, and you can obtain data from referring these people. Then Small Industries Development Board of India is there. You know SIDBI. They have they have their own publication. They will be publishing information regarding small industrial banks. If you are working with small industries, then you can definitely refer to their publications and extract data. If you want customized data, you can ask them to provide you customized data. They will provide you customized data. So their websites will also be providing you. Most of earlier it was very difficult. It was time consuming as to write to these organizations and get data from them or buy their reports and then access data. Today it is not so. Today each of these organizations have their own websites, and they're all free accessible many a time. Most of them are freely accessible. Only simply make an attempt to access to these websites. You can definitely get a lot of data archived in their websites. Then different mills are there, like woolen mill, textile mill association, woolen mill association, then cotton mill association, silk boards are there. So many such business, boards are there. Non-profit organizations are there. They have their own publications, and their publications will fetch you a lot of data. And apart from them, business journals, then social books, business magazines. I was just referring to you. All these magazines. Then libraries. There are private libraries. There are government libraries. There are institutional libraries like IIM library. If you go, you have got hell lot of data available with them. Then you have got digital libraries. Then internet. You have got so many such external sources other than government, and getting secondary data today in today's environment is pretty easy. And researchers are blessed in today's environment, I would like to say. Maybe around 15 to 20 years back, this facility wouldn't have been there for the researchers. Researchers then used to go to library physically and then to surf a magazine or to subscribe a magazine, finding it out. But even it was very difficult to find out right magazine which can fetch them data was the situation with the researchers 15 years back. But today, researchers, you are blessed today. Today you have everything available on your fingertips. Everything is available on your desktop. Everything is available on your mobile. You can carry databases with you on your handset, and you can, at will, being anywhere in the world, you can access to data. That is the beauty. That is the technological advantage what you have as a researchers today, and you can extract to secondary data information very easily. Therefore, secondary data is is a very good data. And apart from these sources, I tell you, I'll give you one more data source. This is a source which, where one researcher, he is not able to find out data in any of the above. His research is something unique, which is not done earlier. No data is available to him, and his research is very much innovative. And but he is not able to gather data, and he can consult these services. They are called syndicated services. Their business is to do research and compile data and supply to the needy, and they sell data and earn their. That is the selling data, collecting data and analyzing data, selling data is their business. Such businesses are called syndicated services, and they do survey on behalf of their clients. They do a normal survey, lifestyle survey, sociographic survey, general topic survey. They do mail survey. They do mail panel survey. They do electronic scanner services. All such survey data collection will be made by them, then compiled and supplied to the customer. You only have to consult them. They are available over net. You have to approach them and put up your intent for them for the data which you require for your research, and then they will do research on your behalf. They will find out the data, and then they will compile it perhaps, and then they will send you in the form of a report which is most convenient for you to adopt for your research, and then you can pursue your research. Such services are syndicated services. They are very vital. They are the businesses which are engaged in collection data, analyzing and selling. And these services are able to provide information to the industries at a very low cost. Where researcher is unable to do, they can do, and it will be cost saving, time saving, effort saving for the researchers. Then there are also disadvantages. There are organizations which will be deceiving sometime, and then the disadvantages are many. And completely we cannot 100% say that their data provided by them is accurate for our purposes. Whereas some such organizations are, internal labor organization, the Organization for Economic Cooperation, then International Monetary Fund. These, then, these organizations, they will fetch you such information, secondary data through which you can obtain. Apart from syndicated services, these organizations, they will be international in nature. They can, that ILO, International Labour Organization, can produce you data on international population, employment, unemployment, wages, and consumer prices. Then Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, OECD, can fetch you data on foreign trade, industry, food, transport, science, and technology. Then International Monetary Fund, IMA, is there. It can fetch you data regarding foreign direct investment inflow, outflow, all such kind of information. So there are so many advantages with the secondary data. The data collected from these sources will have this straight advantage. I shall be little faster now because we are running short of time. The time given to me is 1 hour, so I have to cover so many, so much of the matter here, and it is very difficult to speak about data, secondary or primary, uh, within 1 hour, concise it and to speak about it within 1 hour is very difficult. So kindly permit me to go little speeder on my PPT. I'll be narrating you the advantages very quickly. You can anytime refer back to this PPT and see that data for your better understanding. So they are economical in nature, secondary data. They save your time and they save your efforts, and they will help you to understand the problem better. It provides basic comparison for data that is collected by the researcher, and then you can go for primary data. And there are also disadvantages, several disadvantages associated with secondary data. Secondary data sometimes seldom fits in the framework of the market of the researchers, because unit of secondary data may not be suitable. Your unit of secondary data and the earlier collected unit of secondary data may not be matching. Then concising on unit of data is difficult. Then boundaries, lower limit and upper limit for your data may change. Then accuracy of secondary data is not known. Then data may be outdated many times. Suppose the earlier collected data is 10-15 years back, so that data may not be really befitting for your research at the current time, because 10-15 years time gap will lead to change in the dynamics over market, change in the dynamics over the industry, change in the dynamics over the product, and the change in dynamics more or less on the consumer buying behavior. So definitely, if you see the consumer of 1990s, his behavior was different, and the consumer of today are different. The people, if you, this is also a very important point of research for anybody. If the people, if you are surveying upon people, then if you are surveying upon people who are of the period of 1950 to 1970, their nature is different, and the people after 1970, they are millennials and their nature is different, and the data collected earlier may not be fitting. The people earlier to 1970 may be different in their characteristics, and now the millennials are different in characteristics, and these millennials are very challenging, and therefore the though secondary data is available may not be befitting for your purposes. And taking secondary data and making it useful for your current research and applicable to your current research is a challenging issue, and they are different kind of this thing. And how to evaluate that the data collected by us is fit for our research. For that we have four important criteria. Criteria number one is availability. It depends upon the availability. Second is its relevance. The data collected is whether it is relevant or not, we should see. To see the relevance of the data, we will see units of measurements must be same, and concepts must be same, and currency of data should not be outdated, and time gap is not too much. So then it is relevant. Then we see its accuracy, whether the specifications and methodology used are same in both cases, whether the margin of error is examined is right, then the dependability of the source is right, proper. This we must see. Then accuracy of the data. This accuracy of the data is also an important factor. How much accurate is that data? How much adequate it is? How much adequacy it is providing us? Adequacy is an important factor. It must be sufficing. The earlier researcher who has collected data may be of a small quantity. Now we would be requiring it in a more quantity. Or the sample size taken by the earlier researcher is a smaller sample size. Now the current research demands it to be a more than earlier sample size. Then adequacy doesn't fulfill. So from all this, we will summarize into three important criteria here. One is reliability of that data, then suitability of that data, then adequacy of that data. Keeping these three things in mind, we have to take the secondary data and use it for our research. So secondary data is that is already collected. Let us quickly recap on what is secondary data discussed so far. Secondary data is a already collected data and analyzed and published for some other purpose by some other researcher for his purposes, and that data is a published data, and that data does not change. That data is fixed, constant, and that data is easily available in the form of a published table for a low cost, for low time, and for low efforts. Whereas this data has got so many sources. One is internal source, another one is external source, and data obtained through one of these sources should be verified with three important criteria, that is reliability and suitability and adequacy, and then it can be adopted into our research and then can be used for further analysis. And important point I tell you, I would like to mention here before we go forward, every researcher should and must see a secondary data available on his topic so as to, if not adopting it for the current research, but to use it to find out a research gap. Secondary data collected earlier, if it is thoroughly examined, it will give the researcher an opportunity to find out the research gap that is existing, and he can embark upon that, and then he can pursue his his research upon that. So this is what is all about secondary data. Let us now quickly move to primary data. Primary data, it will be collected for the first time. It is original in nature and collected for a specific purpose or to solve a specific problem. And it is more expensive in nature because you will be collecting it for the first time. It consumes labor, it consumes time, it consumes cost, it consumes effort, and therefore it is costly. And there are many methods of collecting primary data based upon its nature. Based upon its nature means if it is qualitative, then methods will differ. If it is quantitative, then methods will differ. Let us shall see a broad outlook, broad outline of what different methods are available for primary data collection. We have two branches here, again quantitative and qualitative. In quantitative data, surveys plays very important role. Using surveys, we collect quantitative data. In surveys, we come across personal interview kind of survey, mail kind of survey, email kind of survey, in-house self-administered survey, telephone and fax kind of survey, and web-based surveys. Then, on the other hand, we have experiments. These experiments are like, laboratory-based experiments. They are also giving us primary type of data. Then mechanical observation and simulation. These are the various types of primary data collection techniques. Then for quantitative data, if we see quantitative data, then we have focused group interviews, then individual depth interviews, then human observation, case studies, then schedule. Like that, you can have different sources which will help you to collect data. Let us shall see one by one. Let us start with the surveys. We call them many times interviews. Survey, before we talk about surveys, let us see what is population and what is sample. In brief, population is what the entire set of data available on the topic. If you are doing research on consumers of mobile phone, then all the consumers, all the persons who are using mobile in the country or in a geographical region constitute your population. Whereas the population is in its nature is very difficult to cover. It is large in nature. It is not easily completely coverable by the researcher, and therefore researcher has to resort to taking a small portion of the population called sample, and this sample will be representing the whole population, and this sample will be, will be taken based upon the suitability of the research, and that will be said by the sampling techniques, which that is second part of our talk today. We shall see it later. Now, in for quick understanding, we have two things: population and sample. If you want to take complete account of population, then you are doing a census. That census will be normally done by governments. It is a completely counting the population in census. Then the if you are uh, counting sample, or if you are taking account of the sample, then you are doing it a survey. If you are doing the survey, you will be working with the sample. If you are doing census, you will be working with the population. With this understanding, survey means it is sample survey, and sample survey in general is done basically with one instrument called interview, sample survey. This interview is, in this interviews there will be two people. One is the interviewer, the person who is going to take interview, and interviewee, the person who is going to be asked and collected data. So it will be a conversation between two individuals with sole purpose of collecting relevant information to satisfy research purposes. Interviewer will be a researcher most of the times in our context. So researcher will be asking the respondent. Respondent will be interviewee, who will be giving answer. And by taking a good interview with the respondent, researcher will collect his desired information. So while doing this, we will come across three different types of interviews. One is a structured interview, second one is a semi-structured interview, and the third one is unstructured interview, with each having slight variation from each other. Then structured interview, simply it is a verbally administered questionnaire. It will have a questionnaire, but it will not be given in the form of physical format. Whereas questionnaire will be kept in the hands of the interviewer, or the researcher will hold the questionnaire. He will go on asking questions one by one in the questionnaire to the interviewee or the respondent. Then respondent will be giving response to questions independently, and then they will be recorded by the interviewer or the researcher. That is a structured interview. Then semi-structured interview, here it is half leeway for the researcher to explore subject matter. Half is covered through a set of questions, and half through direct interaction. Then unstructured interview, it is an in-depth interview that allows the researcher to collect a wide range of information with a purpose. An advantage of this method is the freedom it gives to the researcher to combine structure with flexibility. In structured survey, the order of questions is fixed in the form of a question, and the same set of questions are asked. In unstructured, there will be a questionnaire, but the researcher has an advantage of altering it depending upon the nature of the respondent. And taking interview has got so many dynamics which we cannot speak now in this talk. We run short of time. So all those dynamics, they contribute for taking interview. So most of the time it is unstructured interview which will help the researcher more. Despite having a structure in the form of a questionnaire with them, they can even adopt to unstructured method and then collect information. Then advantages and disadvantages are there with interviews. In-depth information is taken. Freedom of flexibility has an advantage. It has accuracy of data. Since you are collecting it from the first time, you can definitely verify and collect it only accurate information. So accuracy increases compared to secondary. So disadvantages are there in this method. It is time consuming and expensive to collect. If suppose your respondents are more than 3,000, 4,000, then you cannot approach them if they are geographically distributed across a state or a country. Then reaching all these respondents physically will be very costly, time consuming and effort. So it is very difficult. That time, what you have to do, you have to adopt, surveyors, you have to appoint surveyor, investigators, then supervisors, and you have to pay their salary expenses and then collect data. So it is costly. Doing survey is a costlier affair. This data is very costly. Then the best data collection tools for interviews will be audio recorder, digital camera, cam recorder. You need to have these instruments. 4 instruments are very much essential for doing survey kind of data collection. You will be using a audio recorder if you are taking interview and unstructured interview. Definitely you require a camera, I mean a recorder. Normally the surveyor people, they use it. These supervisors, they use it, or investigators, they use it. While they will record the whole dialogue or the interview of the survey, and then when they replay that audio information, then they will extract the required information from the. So it is a matter of recording this thing. many a times questionnaire will be used as a matter of record. In questionnaire, as the questions are asked, simultaneously researcher will be filling the answers for the questionnaire, and on paper they will be maintaining data, and that will form as a support for taking that serves as a tool for collecting data. Then digital camera, many a times camera is set and whole interview is recorded into. If the behavior of the respondent is pretty much important for the researcher, then definitely digital camera as an instrument is used to record the interview and then collect data. Then camcorder is there. Camcorder is used to collecting data through interviews. It provides combination of both audio recorder and video camera. Using them, you know them very well. So using these instruments, definitely you can collect data and store it precisely, and then you can use it to compile your data in the form of tables which you are going to use in your research. Then questionnaire, the instrument which we discussed, questionnaire is one such instrument. This questionnaire is a pretty important instrument. This questionnaire many a times is also a method of collecting primary information. You will not be able to interview all the people. Rather, you would be, if the respondents whom you are studying are all educated people, then simply you can circulate a questionnaire printed pro forma to the respondent. They will fill your questionnaire and then they will give you. So you will be collecting data through questionnaires, and then you can compile data, extract data from questionnaire, and compile it and use it for your purposes. Questionnaire forms you very important instrument and a method of collection of primary data. Questionnaire is nothing but it is going to be a schedule. Schedule and questionnaire more are same. It is going to be a schedule of questions asked in a particular manner, and which has got a particular sequence, order, and precedence order. And then the questions are asked in a typical format. Questions will be open-ended, closed-ended, and questions will be multiple choice MCQs, and using them you can adopt to restrict the response of the respondent to a particular structured way. Structured questionnaire, unstructured questionnaires can be there. Open-ended also there, closed-ended can also be there, where questionnaire gives you a lot of advantages. It is administered for large number. It is cost-effective. It can be used to compare, contrast previous research methods. It is easy to visualize and analyze. Questionnaires often actionable data. Respondents identify identities protected in it. Questionnaires can overall call areas of topic relatively inexpensive, and it also has a disadvantage. Answers may be dishonest. Questionnaires can't produce qualitative data. Questionnaires might be left unanswered. Respondents may have a hidden agenda. Then not all questions can be analyzed easily, and so on. Form Plus is a online questionnaire software which is easily available online. You can download or you can download Form Plus software, and then you can use it to formulate questionnaires for you. It is available in the online, and it is called as Form Plus. So such is your questionnaire. Let us shall quickly move to the next method, observation. This is one of the other important tool of data collection. This observation, you will be observing the respondent from behind, or you will be observing an experiment from behind, and then you will be recording the output of the response given by the respondent, or the output of the research experiment which you are following. So in all these cases, it is observing and then recording the output. The nature of observation should be accomplished either as a complete observer, or observer as a participant, or observer participant as an observer, or a complete participant. This method is a key base of formulating hypothesis. It has got a lot of advantages. It is easy to administer, and there subsists a greater accuracy with results. It is universally accepted practice. It diffuses the situation of unwillingness of respondents to administer a report. It is appropriate for certain situations. Some phenomena aren't open to observation. Disadvantages also, it cannot be relied upon thoroughly. Many times it will mislead. It has a bias, and it is expensive to administer, and its validity cannot be predicted accurately. In all circumstances, you cannot have observation. Then data collection tools for observations are checklist you can use. Then direct observation you can use. Then the next type of instrument which you can use is focus group. In brief, a focus group is a group of experts ranging from 6 to 10, and where selection of the people, the experts, is very vital. And intelligence of the research, real good effort of the research lies in identifying a proper mix of experts as a focused group, and choosing them should be depending upon the expert should be chosen from all angles of the research which the researcher is doing, and then they should be the experts in the line, and they should be able to contribute to his body of knowledge. And such kind of people should be invited into a group, and group should be formed. Then this group is made to debate upon a group discussion. Then researcher should be a very good moderator here. As a moderator, he should be moderating the discussion. He should be driving the discussion towards the objectives of his research, and then he should observe it properly, then moderate the discussion into, and then concise discussion into data, and then extract data from the discussion into a table, and then use it for reverse. Is a very, very crucial thing, and it requires a lot of intelligence for researcher to pursue. It requires a moderator, it requires a investigator, and it has got a lot of advantages. It is information obtained is usually very detailed here, cost effective when compared to one-to-one. It reflects speed and efficiency in the supply of results. It has got disadvantages too many, lacking depth in converting the nitty-gritty of a subject matter. There may be a bias still be evident in it. Then it requires interviewer training. It requires moderator training. Researcher has a very little control over the outcome, and few vocal voices can draw out to the rest. Difficulty in assembling in all exclusive group. Then data collection tools for such groups, focus groups will be dueling moderator, two-way, then the questionnaire, then the schedule or the topic objectives are going to be objective document are going to be the tools which should be used here for moderating the focus group interview. Then projective techniques. These are the techniques which are used by psychologists in their nature. Psychology kind of researchers, they use this technique. It is a projective technique. This technique projects the data from the mouth of the respondent. Psychologically, they are put to a brainstorming session, and then information will be extracted from them. Is a very, very important technique, which is very rarely used in commerce and management, but used in psychology based. And last, we have case study method. This case study method, according to Bizanj and Bizanj, the case study is a form of qualitative analysis involving the very careful and complete observation of a person, a situation, or an institution. In the words of Good and Hat, case study is a way of organizing social data so as to preserve the unitary character of social object being studied. So, in general, case study, a particular case is taken as a basis for the research, and that case study is analyzed into conversion and then converted into research data, and then concised into research data table, and then used into research by the researcher. This is also very useful technique and a rare technique, normally not done in all the researches, but can be adopted very effectively. And case study method also needs a lot of expertise in the researcher in order to concise the results from the case. Then schedule is also very much similar to questionnaire. Then we have all these different tools and techniques which are available for data collection. 7 important tips are here for getting best surveys as for data collection. You should first define the goal of your survey. That's very important. The objective of your survey must be very clear to you. And then the goal of this survey is to understand why we are collecting data, what should data, how should data suffice our needs must be known to us. then only we can define, then only we can go for survey. First define it, then use closed-ended, clearly defined questions. As much as possible, we have to have a closed-ended questionnaire. All the responses for a query or a question must be first thought, and then it is converted into a multiple choice question, and then the respondents must be forced to choose one among them, so that it is a forced choice question kind of approach should be taken here. That is important. Otherwise, what will happen? The respondent will be at his will to give a uncontrolled kind of response, which cannot be covered under our boundary of our objectives. So it is better always to have a closed-ended questions. Then survey outlook should be attractive and inviting. Then assure respondents about safety of their data. Before you take data from the respondents, interview respondents, you should assure them the safety, confidentiality of the data which you are taking from them. Then only they will open up their mouth and give you data. Then ensure your survey completed in record time. It should not be beyond time. It should not be time lagging. Then do a trial survey before you go for the final survey. This is called pilot survey. Suppose you are trying to survey 300 persons in your research. You can take a sample of 5 out of them first, and then make a trial on them, and then see the questionnaire which you are designed, or see the method which you are doing survey is appropriate, and then see the results taken out of these 5 survey, and then you can generalize it for the rest of the data collection respondents. So pilot survey is very important. Attach a reward upon completion of for users. You should be rewarding the users for giving data to you. It's very important. Now, these are the different techniques which we use to collect. There are many more techniques other than them available in the literature, and each of the technique depends upon the context and the consequence, and the capacity of the researcher. Based upon the capacity, time, restriction, every limitations of the researcher, he has to adopt a proper criteria, proper tool, and then to collect data. So this is all about data collection. I hope I have completed data collection, but I think we are running out of time now. I think more than 1 hour. Sampling technique portion we may not be able to cover fully, but I'll be briefly telling you sampling techniques. Once you decide a data collection, once you decide a data collection method, then you have to adopt a sampling technique. Once you finalize your number of sample size, then a sampling technique must be adopted, and a sampling technique is such a technique. It will tell you how to collect sample, how to finalize your sample point, who should be your respondent. That will be told by the sampling techniques. So there are 2 important types of sampling techniques are proposed here. One is a probabilistic type of sampling, and the other one is a non-probabilistic type of sampling. In probabilistic sampling, we have 2 important criteria. One is a simple random sampling, and another one is a systematic random sampling. Where simple random sampling is an ideal method of sampling collection. It doesn't. It thoroughly is a planned kind of sampling technique. It uses either a random number table or a random selection criteria like tossing, or not tossing, selection criteria like random number table, lottery lotting, and selection kind of techniques are there for simple random sampling. With that, every sample point will be given equal weightage, and a proper sample is selected from the population and used. These sampling techniques will give you a right sample mix for your research. Then systematic sample, is another kind of random sampling technique. It systematically selects a sample from the population Still it uses a criteria in it. Some criteria as a interval criteria, or something like gap criteria, or distribution criteria it will use, and then it will select sample. That is simple systematic sampling criteria. Two criteria are there, and then we have depending upon our data, depending upon our population. If our population is homogeneous population, we will be using simple random sampling or systematic sampling. If our population is heterogeneous, we will not be able to use them, because the prevailing conditions for simple random sampling and systematic sampling is homogeneity of the data, homogeneity of the population. If the population is heterogeneous, then applying these two will be very difficult. So if it is heterogeneous, then sampling techniques say that first divide the data into a homogeneous group, and then do apply systematic random sampling or simple random sampling to extract sample. So as such, the statistics will provide us stratified sampling technique and cluster sampling technique. Stratified sampling technique is applied where our population is heterogeneous but low heterogeneous. If it is largely heterogeneous, we cannot use stratified sampling, we have to use cluster sampling. Then, well, after stratified sampling or cluster sampling, again we have to use one of these techniques as to simple random sampling within it, or systematic random sampling within it. And while using SRS and systematic, we have two approaches again, using simple random sampling with replacement and without replacement. These are all some sampling techniques which are coming in the probabilistic sampling technique, probability based sampling techniques. Non-probability sampling techniques are there, like convenience sampling, then quota sampling, then purposive sampling. Convenience sampling is non-probabilistic. It is thoroughly based upon the convenience of the researcher. When all these probabilistic sampling techniques cannot be applied, then the researcher can go for non-probabilistic as a convenience sampling. If the data or population is dividable into quota, then quota sampling is applied. And if all these are failure, then the researcher can go for a purposive sampling. So these are the different types of sampling techniques which we need to discuss. So I have in this presentation what is a simple random sampling, then each of the random sampling criteria, technique, its method, examples for that, and then benefits, then critical issues, then drawbacks of each sampling technique I have discussed. Simple random sampling, systematic sampling, then after that I have discussed here about stratified sampling. Then after stratified sampling I have discussed here about cluster sampling. Then after this we have non-probabilistic sampling methods like convenience sampling, then we have quota sampling, we have snowball sampling, and then multi-stage sampling we have. And then I have also given here the comparison about these sampling techniques in this PPT. You can refer to this PPT and sum up on the concepts. And because of shortage of time, I am not able to cover sampling portion of the discussion. So we'll see. If you have any doubts and queries about so far discussed, you can question me. But this is one-way mode of online kind of this thing. I am not able to answer if your questions right now. You can email your questions to me to this number, my email ID, and my phone number I have given. WhatsApp is also there for this number. You can send your query email, or you can send your query to this WhatsApp. I will try to address it leisurely. And thank you very much for the patient hearing for an hour here with me. And I take this opportunity to profusely thank Dr. Sachindra for RCU University, who is a very good friend of me. On his persuasion, I am here talking to you people. And thank you, Sachindra. And I also profusely thank Dr. S.O. Halsgi, who has persuaded me to make this presentation for you people. And thank you very much, Halsgi sir. And I also thank Rani Chennamma University for giving me this opportunity to take part in this workshop. I hope I have justified the opportunity given to me by this talk. And pardon me for the mistakes and repetitions and stuttering of things in between. Thank you very much. And I wish you all the very best for all the researchers. I hope the words which we discussed today will be of some meaning and useful for all you researchers. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you, one and all.